Welcome back, everyone. I'm Reggie, and today I'm going to be talking about why these upcoming horror movies coming out this year and between next year are make or break for the horror genre. Now, firstly, if we're talking, horror fans, right? I'm a huge horror fan. I'd say it's my top genre that I'm a fan of, 100%. We're missing some serious stuff. I've done my research, and I think these upcoming movies I'm going to talk about, I think they're not just make a break for their franchises themselves, but I think they make a break for the horror genre, really. When you really think about it, when you really think about the last time there was a classic horror movie that has been spoken about for years and years to come, it's not really happened since the 90s, in my opinion, really. We do have some reboots, some prequels, some sequels that are spoken about, but most of the time we talk about them, it's not really in a good way. It's mostly how bad the movies were. So today I'm going to be listing just a couple of upcoming movies that, as I said before, they are make or break for the franchises and the genre itself. I'm going to go into why just a little bit. But if you're a horror fan here or just a movie fan, let me know what you think of this. I do football content, but again, I'm going to be doing some movie content throughout the whole year. It's something I can't stay away from. But having said that, let's get into it. So the first movie I want to talk about is Halloweenkills, which is coming out October 15th this year, 2021. And the thing is with Halloween, which a lot of people don't really understand, is there are many Halloween films. There are many versions of Michael Myers, the killer. And this one, the timeline of this Halloweenkills that's coming out this October is within a timeline with only 2 movies in it. Even though there are, I believe, 12 Halloween movies now. The original Halloween in 1978, the first ever original, that is the same timeline as this movie. Now, let me explain a little bit of that. The 1978 one, the very first ever Halloween made, is the same Michael Myers and is the same storyline carrying on to the 2018 movie. But any movie between 1978 and the 2018 one are not in the same timeline. Okay, there's different versions of Michael Myers, there's different plots and storylines within these movies. You could argue that Rob Zombie's 2007-2009 Halloween 2 are part of this timeline. You can argue that, I suppose. I don't personally see it as that because, they dive into more Michael Myers' young life, which, is a bit, that you can kind of relate that to any of the movies, really. So I'm not going to personally add that into this timeline. But again, there is a bit of a debate about that. But, as a horror fan and a huge fan of the originals of pretty much most of the most talked about movies, I feel like we're missing a little bit of originality in horror films nowadays. I think it's perfectly fine to make the modern horror film. I think that's great. I think that needs to be done. But there's been so many attempts with making an original movie in modern day times, and the timeline doesn't really go. And I have a great example for that later on a little bit in the video. But the thing with Halloweenkills within the trailer, I feel like they showed a lot within this trailer. But if we just take a little look here at the first scene with the continuation of Halloween 2018 with the house being on fire and Michael Myers trapped in there, you can see that the house is still on fire, the fire brigade are there, they're ready to break in and help whoever's there. Of course, the only person stranded in the house is Michael Myers, and as you'll see here, all hell breaks loose. Now, the one thing I can admire straight away from that trailer is, if you've seen the original Halloween movies, you'll know that in the 70s and 80s, especially with slasher films, it was a big thing to have the POV of the killer as the camera. And I feel like I feel like it was just a little subtle you know, a bit of originality, whether it's for 2 seconds or 5 minutes, whatever. Like they brought it back. You haven't seen that in a modern film, in a modern horror slasher film, in a very, very long time. Seeing the POV from the firefighter himself, it's you know, they added that in, and you know, across the whole trailer, they do give away quite a lot in the trailer for Halloweenkills. I mean, it really relates back to the 1978 film. You got the 2 girls who were babysitted in the first ever movie by Jamie Lee Curtis's character. They are grown up and they are in this movie again, and you know, there's a lot of subtle hints. There's the original Halloween costume that was made in the 1978 movie that has been put back in the playground in this 2021 movie. So that they've added a lot of small details from the very, very first original Halloween film, putting it into this one. And they've already confirmed, you know, because of COVID, it all got held back, but there's going to be a Halloween, the title of the movie is Halloween Ends in 2022, which will be the final movie well, I believe it will be the final movie of this timeline of Michael Myers. And, you know, from the trailer, I feel like they've done a good job. I haven't seen the movie, of course. It comes out in a week's time. But I feel like they've done a really good job of this Halloween because, you know, there are so many. If you look at all the Halloween films, some of them are really bad. Some of them don't, you know, the H2O, oh my God, like that was really, really bad. That really, yeah. But the thing is with Halloween is, you know, slasher films like Halloween, like Scream, like, you know, along the lines of that, you can bring back originality, but you just have to do it right, and you have to do it in the right timeline. If you don't do the right timeline, it will not come together in a movie, and the movie literally will not do well. But the kind of vibe we get from this trailer as well is it's a very much more brutal Michael Myers. Like there seems to be instantly a lot of killing, a lot of different ways he kills people this movie. And it's definitely looking like it's going to be the highest body count of kills we've seen in a Halloween film, possibly ever. This could easily be the most kills we see in a film. So I'm really looking forward to that part. And the fact they're bringing back original characters, original storyline and plot ideas to this movie from the 1978 one, I think is fantastic. Will it pay off? I hope so. I believe so. Out of the movies that are coming out at the moment, I feel like Halloweenkills actually offers us the most at the moment. Just because what I'm about to go into, we don't know too much on other movies coming out just yet. But as of right now, of recording, we know a lot about Halloweenkills, and I really can't wait to see that movie. Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Now, the things with Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I'm a big fan. I really do like the franchise of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. But the problem is, they've made so many where, this is my point I was making about timeline. The timelines aren't great with Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I mean, I really enjoyed the original movie. Like the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre was fantastic. And then there's obviously been prequels, sequels, reboots of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And to be honest, in my opinion, they've not really worked. You know, I think every single movie they've made to do with Texas Chainsaw Massacre, or you can go off to Leatherface the movie, they all have exciting, you know, horror characteristics within the movies. They have exciting, you know, chase scenes, kills. They all have, you know, horror excitement within the movies. I'm not taking that away from them, but a horror movie is more than just the scares that you put in the movie. The storyline has to be there, the timeline has to be there, especially if you're adding it or connecting it to the original storyline, the original movie, the original characters. I feel like they failed to do that with the 2013 Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Do your thing, cuz.
Or I don't think it was even a reboot. Really, it was meant to be a carry-on, but I didn't feel like it was a carry-on. You know, it was his cousin, who, and you know, it was like, I enjoyed the movie as a fan in terms of just like the kills and stuff, and like I enjoy the character Leatherface very much. So I think he's a great killer. I think the idea of him is really scary, which is brilliant, which is what you look for in a horror film. You know, you look for you know, the villain who is ultimately your nightmare, what you fear of. So, you know, I think he's one of them. But yeah, you know, if you look back, the 2006 one was okay. It was pretty good. I like the 2003, 2006 ones. But again, you keep going further on. And Leatherface, they didn't really do a great job of either. I thought they could have expanded on it a lot more. They could have gone into much more detail about the family as well. And that's the thing with Texas Chainsaw Massacre. This one's coming straight to Netflix, which you can take as good or bad. Some people will say it's good because you can get very good exposure from Netflix, but then some people will say it's very bad because they pretty much gave up on putting it. I mean, the rumor was they had done a screen test for a Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Whether it was this one, I don't know. It did not do well, so they did not put the movie out. So now they decided with this Texas Chainsaw Massacre, they're going straight to Netflix. So you can take it how you want. I kind of take it in a bit of both ways, to be honest. But for me, as well, in the other Texas Chainsaw Massacre films, they didn't quite get the dynamic of the family correct. And what I mean by that is, you know, if you look at the 2003 Texas Chainsaw Massacre, it's all about the dynamic of the family, of Leatherface. Everyone, it goes through everyone, their jobs, what they do, how they're all connected, how they all, you know, plan things, you know, like trapping people or acting like they're helping a victim when really they're just keeping them there until, for example, the sheriff would get there and then take over. Like, there's a lot of things to it where they show a great dynamic of the family, which leads to a great storyline of Leatherface, which you understand. You then understand why he does the things he does, who he's doing it for, the whole dynamic of the family. You understand everything. You understand it. You don't agree with it because, of course, that's the whole point. You're not meant to agree with it, but you understand it. And then that's when you start to feel sympathy towards the victim characters, and you know, and that's when you start getting emotionally attached to them in a movie. That's the whole point of a great horror movie. But I feel like the last few movies, especially Leatherface and the 2013 one, I feel lacked that a lot. And for me, they have to get this one right because, you know, I can name, you know, for example, off the top of my head, you know, and of course, I'm going to go on to my next movie. I'm going to go on to will be Scream. So, for example, you've got Scream, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Halloween, Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street. These are all movies that are considered as classic horror films and probably the biggest franchises within horror. But for example, Friday the 13th, 2009 remake. I really enjoyed it, but a lot of people didn't, which is fair enough. I can see why people didn't like it. As a fan, I completely understand why people didn't like it. Friday the 13th, 2010 remake. I really didn't like it. I didn't think it had any kind of originality to whatsoever. They said that the whole build up to it was connected to the originals. It wasn't. It didn't feel like that anyway for me. Anyway, personally. Halloween. We've already spoke about Halloween. Texas Chainsaw Massacre again. Then they failed multiple times to show the dynamic of the family. They failed to really go into depth on the family and the killer Leatherface. And character development in movies, I feel is very important, especially in horror movies. But the main thing as well is to not over-explain it. You can't over-explain something in a horror movie because either it gets uninteresting or it gets too boring. Like, it's simply or too confusing, I should say. Like, you just don't understand what's going on. And that's what you look for in a really good horror movie. So for me, it's make or break for horror, really, because we're really lacking horror movies to be spoken about for the next 5-10 years as a classic horror movie. We're really lacking that, and I feel like we really need that, but we don't have that. And for me, it's not so much just make or break for the horror genre, but Texas Chainsaw Massacre as a franchise, this needs to do well. This one has to succeed. They have to get the storyline right. They have to get the timeline right, and they have to go into depth about the dynamic of the family and the killer. If they don't, if it's the same kind of reboot or remake and it's a fail, I don't know where they're going to go with Texas Chainsaw Massacre in the future. I'm not sure if they're going to be able to carry it on as that much longer, to be honest with you. But of course, as a horror fan, I'm completely hoping it's a very good movie, you know, and I really hope we can enjoy this movie and talk about it in terms of a new reboot or something can happen from it, because you can't keep having consistently bad movies. And the last movie I'm going to talk about is Scream, the new one coming out January. Title is Scream, but 2022. It's not within the official title. It's just called Scream. Big fan of Scream. Now I've done a video before on these kind of similar movies. Sorry, and it's my favorite slasher film. You know, subgenre slasher. It's the best in my opinion. I don't think anything beats it with, as I've listed before, character development, storyline, originality. Emotional attachment to the characters, understanding the dynamic of the group and their friends, and then you completely learn and understand why, how, when the killer does what he does or she does in the movies. Now, the thing is about Scream, okay, is Scream 4, for example, I really enjoyed it. A lot of people didn't. It got critiqued quite a lot, which is understandable. But for me, you know, if you're a big fan of these and you love the originals, they made Scream 4 14 years, 12 or 14 years after the last one. So it was already a big jump, and you know, they done what they had to do in terms of they had it in the modern timeline, but it was carrying on from the original. But they had the original cast, which is fantastic. It's always great to see that. But they had originality in the storyline. And again, because of the first 4 movies, you already know the dynamic of this group. But they still went into the dynamic of the new high school group, which is fantastic because you get to learn about them and who's doing what, why they're doing it. And they kept the originality in Scream 4, which is why I enjoyed it personally. I get why some people may not like it in the kind of modern day. Some people said they left it too late to do Scream 4, but they've just made a new Scream 5. So, you know, but, you know, looking at interviews with the cast, Courtney Cox has come out recently and said it's not a reboot and it's not necessarily a continuation either. Hence why it's not called Scream 5. It's a new Scream. Now, as a huge fan of Scream, this does concern me a little bit.
I'm feeling woozy here.
If, for example, the first 4 Screams were all produced and directed by the late Wes Craven, who of course, you know, he done things like Nightmare on Elm Street as well, the original, and he was just brilliant. I thought he created some really, you know, Wes Craven is the reason we have classic horror franchises to this day. Unfortunately, he passed away, of course. So this Scream film is completely produced and rewritten and done by new people, which I don't know much about. I've tried doing the research on them. They, you know, I know a little bit about them, but not in terms of their horror stuff. So the thing is, the only thing I'm really hoping is they don't take away the originality of Scream. That's all I. Fair enough, like people will freak out, but fair enough if you have to kill off the original cast to bring in a new cast to then carry on the whole Scream franchise. I think personally that's fair enough. From spoilers, this is a spoiler alert here for Scream. From what I read, I'm pretty sure Dewey dies in this Scream film. I'm like almost certain he dies unless he's somehow the killer, which would be a crazy twist, but I don't think he would be. I think he is killed off this film officially. He's come close in 2 of the movies. And, you know, for me, I just really hope they can keep everything and just pass the baton and just keep the Scream franchise going. For me, it doesn't necessarily have to be the original cast. That doesn't mean it's not a good franchise just because it's not the original cast. That's not how it works. But again, you have to take in everything. Show us the new dynamics, show us character development, show us who, why, what's happening. Keep the originality. And also, from what we see from pictures and just some leaked things that we've seen on the internet, this Scream might show a lot of flashbacks from the original movies for storyline and plot ideas that we did not see or were never shown in the original movies, which I think could be pretty cool because that means they could either connect all 4 movies even better for us and make it even more unimaginable than we thought, or they can just simply connect the 5th one to the first 4 and it will carry on the franchise. So I think if that is true, that would be fantastic. But for me, them 3 movies, they're the upcoming most talked about 3 horror movies coming up at the moment. Whether more were being made and come out soon for us to all talk about, I really hope so. But for me, they're the 3 coming out and they're the ones that really talk about at the moment. So I thought I'd give my thoughts on them. And it's really make or break because, you know, out of the 5 classic horror franchises I listed, there's 3 reboots coming. Well, I don't want to say reboots, but there's 3 of the 5 bringing out new movies. So it's a tough one. It's really like it's more make or break for the franchises themselves of the films, of course it is, and the subgenre. Because if these are all really bad, then the subgenre of slasher for horror, that might be just frowned upon after these. Because if it fails, everyone's gonna be like, "What's the point? The last one was so bad. I'm not watching the new one." So, but for me, we are as a big horror fan and as horror fans, if you're watching this or whatever, you know, I feel like we're really, really missing that just originality of horror movies where we can talk about it for years to come, where we can say when we're in 20 years time, oh, I went to the cinema to watch that movie when it first came out. It was a classic movie, and looking back on it, it's a classic horror movie now. But unfortunately, we don't have that. And we've not had that, in my opinion, really since the 90s. Like, I could be wrong, I could be missing out something, but from the top of my head, we've not really had that since the 90s, and I feel like that's a real shame on the generation of horror fans and just movie fans, just movie lovers generally, whether they're kind of the younger generations and upcoming between, you know, maybe 15 and 20, or even older generations. You know, everyone wants to see, if you're a fan of something, you want to see it in the best possible format and design. And that's the same for horror movies. You know, if you're a horror movie fan, you want to see the best horror movie possible. And I just don't feel like we're getting that at the moment. So I really hope these aren't break for horror genre. I really feel like it can just be a big breakthrough. But again, we can only hope. But thank you guys for watching. I'm going to be back with some more content. I did say that last time, but I had to work on some other projects within the last month. I've just been so busy to not film or be active on this YouTube channel. But I'm back. I'm back filming. I'm filming probably another video today or tomorrow as well, which will come out in the next week or so. So yeah, keep an eye out for that. If you like this video or this kind of content, just hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit the bell notification so you don't miss videos like this. Thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate it. I'll be back soon.